Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I will show you how to install the famous timing chain guides on the M60 M62 and the M62Tu engine. I will also show you what problems I found while I was doing this job and how to resolve them before becoming a serious engine issue. Before you do this, you obviously need to remove the old ones and then lock the crankshaft and both camshafts. If you're not sure how to do this, please check out my two short separate videos on how to lock the timing system and also my previous video on how I removed the timing chain guides. In my previous video I went into a bit more detail and I compared the old versus the new parts and the amount of wear after 153,000 miles with good maintenance, of course. Anyway, enough talking, let's get to work. If you're watching this, the chances are you've probably seen some of my other videos. If you haven't, please consider having a browse through my channel. And if you do like them, it will help greatly the channel. And yeah, consider subscribing and liking the videos that you enjoy. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about parts that I will be replacing today. Now, I've started the building process. So far it's taken me several months to get to where I am at the moment. I've taken my time as this is a project car, it's not a daily driver at the moment. It used to be, but since I started doing all this work, it's been parked in the garage for a few months. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the first part that I will install, and this is the intake pipe which connects the oil separator to the CCV valve at the back of the intake. If you're wondering what this part looks like, I will just show you. This is the part. On the left hand side on the screen is the O-ring which connects right here in this hole on the cylinder head. The other side, which is the spring-loaded part, connects to the CCV valve on the back of the intake. After I install this part, I will move on to the oil separator. The oil separator is this little part here. I'm installing a brand new part just because my old part broke. As soon as I touched it, this part here which connects this metal, let's call it the head, and the body of the oil separator, it just shattered in several pieces, so obviously I couldn't reuse it, so I had to buy a brand new one. So after I install this, I will talk about the U-shaped timing chain guide and the grub screw which holds this part in place. Now, not too many people have mentioned this. I will go into a little bit more detail because I think it's quite important to obviously do this job correctly and don't end up with some serious oil leaks or a lot of engine management lights. The next part I'm going to show you is the V-shaped or U-shaped timing chain guide. You're looking at the U-shaped or V-shaped, whatever you want to call it, timing chain guide. Now this is a brand new part. I will be replacing all the timing chain guides, and the first thing I want to show you, or the first thing I want to talk about, this is actually on the back of this guide. Make sure when you disconnect the old part, make sure that this little O-ring here, including the little oil passage washer, which is a very thin piece of metal with a hole in it, as you can see, obviously to allow the sufficient amount of oil to flow through the guide and lubricate the chain and the timing chain guide. When I removed this, the original part, this O-ring and the metal washer was stuck here, so make sure you remove this. And after this I want to talk about this O-ring, so make sure this O-ring is in place and it's oiled. When you assemble it, put a little bit of oil or WD-40, whatever you have handy. And last but not least is probably one of the most important thing that I have not heard anyone talking about. This is the grub screw. It's spelled G-R-U-B. So this is a screw that holds the oil separator head in place here and doesn't allow it to go back, obviously, when you're installing the pipe. Obviously, if this is not in place, you will pretty much break this, or you will not be able to install it, and you will end up with massive oil leak. So the grub screw is something that doesn't come on the new part, at least didn't come on my part, so I had to remove it from the old U-shaped guide. There was some medium strength blue Loctite thread lock on it. Took a bit of obviously force to take it out, but there was absolutely no damage, as you can see, to the head of the bolt. So it's a 3mm head hex bolt. and you would obviously find it handy to use an Allen key, 3mm Allen key. Now, when I've mentioned this, you will see a little bit more detail later on when I get to install it. The next part I'm going to talk about is the right hand side timing chain guide. So this is the smallest of the three, and it's pretty much made of plastic apart from these inserts here, which are made of metal. So this goes on the right hand side of the engine and holds this in place. Obviously, oil separator is held in place by the grub screw, which just pushes it, and also a 10mm head bolt, which is M6 bolt, which holds it in place. Next and final timing chain guide is the tensioning guide. This is something very important, which if you don't do right, it might cause premature failure of all the internal parts due to obviously the lack of lubrication. So imagine when you buy the brand new part, this is the way it comes. There is a little cable tie or zip tie, whatever you want to call it, that holds it in place. Now this is the actual timing chain guide. You have a little oil passage here, which obviously allow for oil to lubricate the chain and the guide. Now be very careful when you remove this part. My part was slightly twisted and the oil passages didn't align correctly. So what I did, I removed this. You can just push it out like that, and you can see the two oil passages, they have to align with this here, which I've marked with white. So when you push it back in place, make sure that this sits correctly. You can twist it a little bit for the O-ring to align, and make sure when you install in this part, make sure that this part aligns correctly. When you install it, you could also blow some air through it to make sure it flows, and the idea is when you install this part here, it sits in the correct orientation, that the oil will flow from here, it will go through this little pipe, and then it will come out through here as well. This connects to the U-shaped timing chain guide and obviously feeds oil to it as well. Just before I forget, the next thing I wanted to show you is this little green O-ring here. So when you remove your left hand side bank 1 timing chain cover, you may see it, you may not. So this will be something that you will have to replace. Obviously it's up to you. When you buy yourself a genuine or Victor Reinz good quality seal kit or gasket kit, it will come in it. Now I did buy the 2 gaskets, and it came with this kit. So this is the green O-ring here. Hope you can see it, because of obviously the reflection of the light, you mightn't see it very well, but I'm sure you're getting the idea. I'm going to do something that is not necessary. I want to make sure 100% that the chain goes on the sprockets exactly in the same way. So I'm going to mark the chain. I'm going to show you how to clean up the gasket surfaces for the front timing chain covers. I'm going to use a straight edge. This is a diamond sharpening bit. This is for a router bit. Just show you what it is. It's probably about maybe 1 to 2,000 grit, so it's pretty fine. As it's so fine, obviously it will get some dirt in it, so just rinse it with brake cleaner or something else, and just continue on in the same way. You could also place a rag underneath here, because when you're rinsing, you don't want all this dirt to fall into the onto the bottom. So that's what I'll do for now. first thing I'm going to install is the breather pipe. You may need to use a screwdriver and a hammer just to hammer it back in place. Now be gentle because the part is plastic. Just needs a little bit of persuasion to go into place. That's it. The next thing to install is the oil separator. The oil separator, obviously the head of the oil separator has a little O-ring inside. I'm sure you can see it. So this goes in here. The first thing you need to do is insert this rubber seal onto this pipe here. That's the part installed in place. Just wanted to let you know that every single part that I will be using today, I will put a link in the description so you can find it and purchase it if you obviously need to. The next part I'm going to install is the U-shaped guide. Before I install the U-shaped guide, I will put a little bit of medium strength Loctite thread lock. I have done a review on this product compared to a Chinese product, so if you want to see this, please check through my channel and have a look for yourself. Now this is a medium strength, as I said, blue Loctite, so I have already cut the tip of it. Pull this little tab here and just squeeze a little bit of thread lock in the actual guide. Pull this tab up. This is locked. This is unlocked, and place some thread lock inside this. That should be sufficient. After we've placed some thread locker on the grub screw, we'll proceed to install the timing chain guide in place. You will have 2 M7 bolts on the top, as I mentioned earlier. And 3 M6 bolts with the same E10 head on the bottom. Tighten all 5 bolts at 14 Newton meters. That's 14 Newton meters here. To complete the installation of the U-shaped guide, we need to finish with the installation of the grub screw, which is right here, which will push against the head of the oil separator. Remember, I did put some thread lock, and that will stop the bolt from obviously getting loose. It's pushed to get against the head, and now we give it a little bit more tension. That's as far as I will go. It will help if you put the chain in the correct place now. As you can see, my marks align with the correct location. The next part I'm going to install is the right hand side plastic timing chain guide. 2 bolts, M6 with 10mm heads. You will know when you've installed this correctly when you hear the click on the bottom tab here. The long screw is on the top. And the smaller one is on the bottom, and it screws into the oil separator. Tighten by hand first, and then finish with 10 Newton meters of torque. That's 10 Newton meters. I'm gonna need a long socket for the bottom bolt, just because it's too deep for a short one. That's 10 Newton meters. That's the second timing chain guide in place. Before I install the third timing chain guide, which is the tensioning one, I wanted to just show you that you can do this job very easy without having to remove the vanos, wheels, or the nuts, camshaft, intake camshaft sprockets. You don't even have to worry about timing the vanos, just because you're only replacing the guides. This is probably one of the easy how to do guides on YouTube, so I hope you enjoy this. And torque the last bolt to spec. Cable tie in place. One last thing before I finish for today is I'm going to remove the green oil seal on the left hand side timing chain cover. That is the old one, and that is the new one that I'm going to be installing. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. If you enjoy my content and if you want to learn more, please subscribe to my channel, and if you wish to receive notifications when I upload new videos, just click on the bell icon and then click all. Your support and comments mean a lot to me, and I just wanted to say thank you again for sticking around.